Hi, my name is Richard Hodges, and I work at Franklin College over at University of Georgia. I'll present this, the links at the very end as well. And my topic today is about creating a custom color picker for Franklin College websites. And so what we needed to do was create, within our branding guidelines, we needed to create a consistent look among, we have about 140 plus websites that we're working with. And so as you can imagine, with so many different departments and lab sites, we have different personalities, and they want to customize each site to their own individual, how they want it to look. And we need to sort of get them all on board so that you know that you're within the University of Georgia website. It doesn't matter which department that you're with. Also, we created a theming, it's a branding guideline, so we've limited the color choices that they're able to actually pick. And the reason we did that was because of accessibility issues. There are certain contrasts between varying colors, like the text and the background. We didn't want to have our clients pick colors that were inaccessible, because, for one thing, that's a lawsuit issue because we're an education institution. So here are a brief sample. So we're laughing because the colors aren't looking so good.
Shades of purple.
Yeah. But
just look at the hex numbers.
Yeah.
Yes, I recognize 77121.
Yeah. So yeah, we have 4 different. Well, there are primary swatches with tints. So if you can see that the first one starts here and the second one starts over here, third and fourth. And how they're built is we chose the first color as the primary color, and then the secondary color, which it says 33% of the tint. And this will be more of the background color, but it could also be used as reversed out text on top of a primary background color. So we're trying to go for as much contrast as possible and also provide our clients with some individuality. This is a little bit of a snapshot of how the color picker looks inside the admin interface of your theme. And what I did was I created a series of drop-down lists. Up here we have 2 different versions, purple and less purple. So, but basically when you click on the primary default on this one, you'll get a list of different color swatches that you can choose from. And through JavaScript, I made it also choose a default secondary, which is a complement. It's something that I felt like, using my design skills, I felt like these 2 colors were the best match. And I also did that for the background color as well. Now, the client can go in and change those second and background colors anytime they want to. But just as like a helper function, if you choose the primary default color, it automatically chooses the secondary and the background color. But I just thought that was, something that would help the client out a little more. This is another version of purple and less purple. That's actually green on the right side. So, one example site that's really purple, and this is the African American Studies, and it's kind of hard to tell. This next slide might show you something. So what I was saying before with the primary color and the secondary color, we have the very strong primary color, and we have the reversed out background color on top of that, so that we're compliant with our accessibility issues. That has enough contrast. And the same thing here. We have the primary color sitting on top of the secondary color, and once again going for a lot of contrast. Now these are, as I said before, these are pre-built swatch palettes. So we have like a dozen or so that the client can choose from. So and maybe my topic was a little bit misleading, that I may have led you to believe that you can choose any color you wanted to. That's not the case here. but basically we're using PHP and JavaScript to create the color palette as you see it. And the background color you can't even tell because it's so close to white, and this display is not very good.
Excuse me, are you saying you use Java's, oh, okay, so you're just using, okay, I guess you're going to go into it.
Yeah, it's so if you've ever messed around with the theme settings files, that's primarily where all the business end is being done. JavaScript is mostly just for the user interface and the update of that. The business part is being carried through on the select switches, the buttons that you saw earlier, which will give you the options for the drop-downs. And with that, every time you save, you're saving to the system theme settings form. And that's how we're regulating the update of your CSS files. Also, that's important. The other secondary important part of that is I didn't just randomly go around and allow it to write any kind of RGB or hexadecimal color. I've already pre-selected those colors out, so instead of, like if you've ever tested out the jQuery color picker, it's letting you select any kind of RGB or hexadecimal that you possibly can. In this case, I just went ahead and crafted my own CSS files, and I'm selecting between those files. So we're updating through the system theme settings form by swapping out various CSS files that I've already created. So I'm not really writing anything new. It's just kind of, these are, for us, it's just stock files that we swap out every time you save and make a new selection. And I'll demo a live version of that so you can see the different shades of purple.
So you're swapping out an entire CSS file, you're not just setting maybe a body class if a system setting it?
Right, and I've divided it into the primary CSS file, the secondary CSS file, and the background CSS file. So I'm always constantly overriding those areas that I've selected. So you can update any one of the three individually by creating your color selections on the admin interface. Does that make sense? Or?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think about how that would work in a like a SAS workflow, where maybe you keep a file, a partial with all of your color palettes that you're reusing in all of your other SAS files. And so what it sounds like you would have to do is create 3 sets of that partial and then recompile into 3 different styles.
Essentially, yeah, that's essentially the idea behind it. Have you ever looked at the color module itself?
I have not really looked at the color module. I've used color field before to have color values and with a picker kind of thing. I mean, I've used it in like Bartik or whatever.
Right.
But I've never tore open the module.
Has anyone else tried to use the color module just by itself with a theme other than Bartik? Nothing? Because there are not very many themes that you can use the color module with. And that's sort of why I got in this direction, is because we weren't using Bartik, we're using Boron. And I can show you a demonstration that I've implemented this into adaptive theme. It's also with Omega, and I put it on Boron, Omega, adaptive, and I think that's about it. My last one was going to be Zen, but it didn't work for this presentation.
You show us on Omega? Anybody else on Omega use Omega?
Yeah, so
Not to hijack your presentation.
well, that's all right. It's the end of the day, man. So this is our site, purple as can be, and through the admin interface, we go to administration, the appearance through the admin menu. we go to settings, we see all the themes that I've implemented here. Oh, Bootstrap was the other one. So here's the adaptive theme implementation with the color picker on it. So as I said before, if you choose the primary color scheme dropdown, you get a certain amount of selections here. I didn't actually count these, but they all look purple on that screen. Yeah. So choosing any one of these, like I said before, if you choose a primary color, it's going to automatically choose a secondary color and the background color. That doesn't have to be set in stone. You can override that anytime you wish. But if you choose another, well, say if I re-choose this primary color, it defaults back to what I had before, or if I choose another one. Yeah.
So does it kind of go in a hierarchy where you can choose the primary color and it sets the secondary and background, and then if you set the secondary, will that set the background?
I didn't want to go that far into it because the backgrounds are so similar in hue and in their tint. So it was just a matter of if you chose your primary, I felt like that was enough for you to get you in the ballpark of what I felt was acceptable complementary colors. And the really background colors are just a little more magenta, a little more a little more green, a little more just slightly so. And it's something that you would have to constantly save this and look at your page and see, well, that wasn't quite what I expected it to be. So it's still something that you have to play around with. And one of the benefits of having the color module from Bartik is that it gave you that JavaScript preview on there. So that's 2.0 for me. I need to move in that direction. But as far as this goes, you choose your primary color. It gives you the secondary color and the background color, which you can override either of those at will. That's adaptive theme. This is Bootstrap. They all look the same, basically. And this is the theme that we're using. It's a sub-theme of Boron. So if I wanted to make it blue, make it so. If anybody's went to Jason's lecture today, I took a class with him. It was all about bacon, in case you missed it. That man loves bacon. So here we see the updated primary, and the secondary color is in this menu structure over here as well. Really hard for you to tell, except for, well, that blue kind of came through, but you get the idea, right? And going back to settings, we wanted to look at Omega. So Omega really just looks exactly the same. There's something else that I need to change in this theme itself. There's an argument someplace. So it's not quite there yet because I get this. It's not the best error message I've ever seen. But I'm going to have to tweak around with that. So it's kind of there and it's kind of not quite yet. But that's the idea behind it. So 3 out of 4 ain't bad for me. Any other questions about that? Or
are you going to show us code?
Yeah. Let's get back to you.
Oh yeah, back before I derailed your presence.
So the framework of this is all the heavy lifting is being done with PHP code. JavaScript is just for user interface on the administrative side, and the CSS files I'm creating custom. Anytime I make a selection in that primary drop-down list, I'm doing that through PHP. It's being read through the system of theme settings form and is calling a new CSS file every time I call it. So if we can get to that. The two PHP files that we're interested in are theme settings, PHP, and template.PHP. Template.PHP does the most work. Theme settings just kind of provides you with a setup for the buttons and the drop downs. they also allow the JavaScript file to read the ID tags of the drop-down buttons, so you can see which option that you're selecting for. So with the color picker JavaScript file, like I said, it's just basically reading the ID tags of those PHP files and updating the interface view for the appearance. Yeah, let's get away from that. Does anybody use Sublime Text?
Yes.
I really like it. Probably never going to buy it, but so if you see a pop-up for the purchase, that's why. Yeah. Theme settings and template.php. And all this, my code files are on GitHub, so I've included a link at the end. You can go to that. This is a highly stripped down version of it, but it's the basic guts of everything that you see. And it may take you a little bit to work into your own theme if you choose to use it or not. So in the form system theme settings alter, all we're really doing is setting up our CSS file for the preview of the color picker, which is on the administrative side, and the JavaScript file, which once again it updates any choices that you make through the select buttons. And these are the select buttons themselves, that they're the visual display, and I've hard-coded everything as far as the ID tags and the classes that go with it. So I don't know if you can read this, but the first one, I'm making the primary drop-down list, and these are all the choices. So you'll see that we have the default, we have the blue-green, blue-gray, brown, and so on. The secondary drop-down list is made after that. This is really straightforward PHP. And the background color, same thing. Every single hue that you saw in the drop-down list is written here. Now you're going to see this whole list again, because this is actually where this file is actually reading these, and this is more for just a display. It might be a little confusing, but if you actually play around with it, you might kind of get it better. So I'm basically hiding this whole array from view, but this is the one that's actually counting, because that's the one that updates the code. And just a simple submit, and we clear the cache so that on redisplay it updates the HTML, so you can see the new CSS. The template.php file, I'm using the preprocess function to call my own private function, which is just simply called getColorScheme, passing it the variables. And in the getColorScheme, I'm using THEME-SETTING to get my primary, secondary, and background colors, storing them to a local array. And then from that, I'm using switch statements on each of these. And this is what's actually being passed on to the JavaScript, so it interacts with each other. So that's pretty much it for that. It's just really simple. The JavaScript is only there to, on the ready function, you basically have a default setup. So if your theme hasn't been saved yet with any of the primary or secondary options, it's just going to go through and give you the standard default setup, which is someplace around here. Sorry I'm scrolling so much. You getting dizzy yet? There's a set theme function in here. There it is. So this is the one that pairs off the primary and the secondary and the backgrounds. So you can update any of these at will. Once again, I've hard-coded all my values in here. I could have just as simple created another CSS file just for all these. But I was kind of under pressure for time, and this seemed like the easiest way out for me. But basically, the JavaScript file, it's just calling it's looking for changes in each one of the select lists. So if you're changing the primary, it's going to go through here and reset. It's going to update the colored chip background on the admin interface. So when you have the list drop down, it's going to change that color and also set it for the new default. So when you save the form, it's going to be that new CSS file. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it at this point. There's not a whole lot of magic smoke that I can explain about this. Basically, the idea was that I wanted to create something that all of my coworkers would be able to edit as well. So it wasn't just something that was, all in my head. It's something that could be, for anyone could just read it and be able to add another color to it, which is really just simple. You just basically copy like the last line in there, put a new color on there, and make sure you update the PHP files as well. So you've seen how it works. Do you have any questions about it? And again, it's more of, if you want to download the code, it's on my GitHub account, and let me display the link for that. It's this link down here. Can you read that? So it's available for anyone to play around with and modify, or if you feel like working with me on it, that'd be great, because I'm definitely thinking about a new version in the future that's going to be hopefully more like the actual color module, where it writes to the file's structure instead of just using CSS files.
See, have you ever used the styles in CK Editor? You can set custom configurations for CK Editor.
Right.
So I've got a client right now that we wanted their editors to only be able to choose styles that were already mixed with their theme. And so what would be great is this customer would like to be able to change certain accent colors across the entire site, on the theme level. And so I'm trying to think of a way, and we've already compiled the Sass for their theme, and then I set up a second CSS file. But the way CK Editor works is it's all JavaScript configuration.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to minimize the having to put in a bunch of hex or RGB values over here, over here, over here, over here, because if one of them changes, it's going to be like 10 different files that are all going to have to be hand updated. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to think of is how can the color settings for these different palettes be configured in one place and be able to update all of these files,
Right. Yeah.
And so I was thinking maybe like a JSON configuration that could get read in or something. I'm not sure how I would do that with Sass though.
Right.
Maybe a parsable set. So you got a Sass partial with your color palettes in it, and then maybe that can be through a grunt task or something can be output in a JSON or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and what's interesting about you may want to look at the color module itself. It's almost entirely PHP, and it's going through and updating those RGB values and writing to the file's structure in your site. So the site's all files. That's where it's being stored. How it's being done is a little bit tricky, and
Magic.
Yeah, but it's really efficient, and the drawback about that is it's already using its own regions. So trying to extend regions into it has been the most difficult challenge for me at this point.
So the regions are hard coded into how the color module works?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And it's not just a matter of adding a new region in. It doesn't seem to recognize that. There's something that's actually in the color module itself that it needs to be extended further. But that's my challenge is I'm wishing to hack into that, and so that I'm not just writing CSS files every time I want to make a new color.
Right.
Because that doesn't make sense. You know, it's not reuse.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking maybe you could set a body class based on, so you've got your color palettes, right? And you've got X number of permutations that you could create.
Yeah.
And so maybe you build a body class and then use that to set some key variable in your CSS, you know, in your SAS file where you've got, okay, body with this class gets all this crap.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I haven't gotten into SAS too much. I kind of just minimally understand how it works, but
Sure.
the variables is what really turned me on to.
It'll save you days.
Right. Yeah. Until it falls apart. Which I've heard can be kind of a nightmare. But yeah, that's something that would be really nice for our team to be working with is SAS, because it would prevent us from overwriting each other's CSS in the future. Sure. Anything else?
Cool.
That's it for me. Thanks.